Good morning, everyone. I wanted to go over a few of the questions that are posted for the Edge Elastic, just so that way you have an idea of what you are doing. If you maybe look at the questions and you're like, huh, we haven't practiced this enough, I don't quite get it. This way you have like a direct example of each type of problem. So there are four different types of questions, and they sort of escalate in terms of difficulty. So we're going to start with the first section and do number one together. It says, according to the highlighted angle, label the sides of each right triangle as opposite leg, adjacent leg, or hypotenuse. Okay, now if we look at this triangle, it has angle Z written really big up here. So that is the angle that we are going to look at everything from the perspective. It's angle Z right here. And let me see, can I mark this up? I don't know exactly how this scratch pad works, but let me see what I can do. We're looking at everything from the perspective of angle Z, okay? So when we do that, we need to make sure that we are keeping in mind what is opposite and adjacent to angle Z. Hypotenuse is going to be the same regardless. It is always going to be your largest side, and it is also always going to be whatever is across from the right angle. So if I get rid of that right there, I can go on and move hypotenuse to right here. 35 is my largest side, and it's also directly across from the right angle, okay? Now, for the next two, I'm going to have to use angle Z to my advantage. Now, remember, this is the angle that we're looking at it from. The opposite side is going to be across from this angle, and the adjacent side is going to be touching this angle. So if I'm thinking opposite, I could, if I wanted to, just draw, oops, let me change it to where I'm on this. I could just draw an arrow going from this angle across, and it is pointed at this side. So I know that this side, 21, is my opposite side. Or if you want to, I always personally start with opposite before adjacent, but you don't have to do that. Let me move this away. I don't know how to just get rid of it. um, but if you don't want to do that, what you could do is you could say, hey, this is my hypotenuse, and this is my other side that is touching angle Z. So that means it's going to be my adjacent side, okay? So I'm going to get rid of this right now and label this as opposite, label this as adjacent. I think that it should work for you to check all of your answers once throughout. And if I check my answers here, it says check answer failed. So maybe you can't check your answers. Sorry if you can't. Um, but yeah, if it lets you check your answers, great. If not, oh well. Let me try the check answer again. Is it not working? It may just not be working. That's okay. But this is the right answer. This is our hypotenuse. This is opposite angle Z, and this is adjacent to angle Z. All right, let's look at one in the next section. We're going to look at number 5. And for number 5, it says list which ratio is needed to find the measurement of each missing angle as a fraction and as a decimal rounded to the nearest thousandth, aka 3 decimal places. Okay, so to do this, we need to think back to this table. Now I'm going to post this whenever I post the instructions for the Edge Elastic along with this video. So you should already have this ready to go, but we are going to need to refer back to this table. Our different ratios that we can have are these three in this top row, okay? We have adjacent divided by hypotenuse, opposite divided by adjacent, and then opposite divided by hypotenuse. I don't know why I said those in the wrong order, but I just did. Okay, so now looking at this, my recommendation to you is first, figure out which sides you have. If you want to, you can use the scratch pad to label them, but you don't have to. So if I look at these two sides, I'm going to start by labeling my two sides, and let me see what I can do here. Okay, so again, I always like to start with whatever is easiest, which to me is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is across from the right angle, so it's going to be this side that is 26. I'm just going to put HYP there to remind myself that that's the hypotenuse. Okay, now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look for my opposite or adjacent, okay? So this side right here that is 16, I need to determine if that is opposite, aka across from this angle, or if it is touching this angle. And if we look at this angle is touching the hypotenuse, and it's also touching this side. So this is not adjacent. It is going to be opposite, okay? So let me see if I can label that. All right, opposite. Okay. So this is our hypotenuse and this is our opposite. Okay. We know that. Now looking back at our trigonometry table, let me open that up. Hold on just a second. This is, yeah, let me do this so the Zoom stuff isn't getting in the way. If I look at my table, the column that has opposite and hypotenuse is this column right here in the middle, and opposite is on top. So when I set up this ratio as a fraction, my opposite side needs to go on top. So what I'm going to do, let me get out of the scratch pad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to type in my opposite side, which was 16, and I'm going to put that in a fraction over my hypotenuse, which is 26. And that's all you have to do. You could simplify this fraction if you wanted to, but you don't have to. Okay, we can just leave it like that. All right, now for my decimal, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these two numbers and divide them because that's how you find this ratio as a decimal. So I'm going to pull up my calculator here and I'm going to type in 16 divided by 26. And when I do that, I get this really long decimal. It says to round to the nearest thousandth, aka 3 decimal places. So I have 0.615, and then the next digit is a 3. Since that is less than 5, I'm going to round down. So it's going to be 0.615. Okay, and that is going to be my answer. Let's see if the check answer works for this one. Check answer failed. It may just be because I'm recording, guys. Try out the check answer. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry, but hopefully it works. All right, next section. Let's look at number 9. For number 9, we are going to estimate the range of the indicated angle. Again, I always think it's a good first step to label the sides that you have as opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. Okay, so I'm going to start with this side that's 34. The side that is 34 is touching the angle that is highlighted, but it is not the hypotenuse. So I'm going to label it adjacent. It is my adjacent side. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I am going to look at the 35 side. That side is my hypotenuse, so I'm going to label it hypotenuse. Again, you do not have to do this, okay? But I do think it's a good tool. Let me see. I don't know how to move that. I'm just messing with it now, okay? But this is my hypotenuse and this is my adjacent, okay? So I'm going to look back at my table and I'm going to find the column that has both of those. In this case, it's the first column, okay? Now, I'm going to figure out what the adjacent of not the adjacent. I'm going to figure out what the ratio is of my adjacent divided by my hypotenuse because that's what it has right here in this first column, okay? So if I clear out my scratch pad, I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to calculate adjacent divided by hypotenuse because that's based on the numbers that I had, the sides that I had, that is what I need to do. So I'm going to take 34 divided by 35. And if I do that, I'm going to get 0.971. Now what I'm going to do is refer back to my table and see where this falls in this column. And if I look at that, 0.971 is going to be between 10 and 20 degrees, okay, in this column. 0.971 would lay right here if we were to label it because these are all in order, okay? So because of that, it's going to be between 10 and 20 degrees. I'm going to click that and drag it there. Does the check answer work now? No, it still doesn't. It might, I don't know why, y'all. Hopefully it works for y'all. Okay. Next section and last section. This section to me is the trickiest, but it's also the most important. So we really need to take it seriously. Okay. How I'm going to set this up is I'm going to, again, I think it's always a good idea to start by labeling your sides. Okay. So if I look at my different sides, this side that I do know right here is across from this angle that's 70 degrees. So I'm going to put opposite. because if I were to draw an arrow across from 70 degrees, it would be pointed right at that 15. And then if I'm going to label this side up here, what I need to do is I need to look at it and say, well, is it my hypotenuse? It's not. This is my hypotenuse. That's the one that's across from my right angle, but it is touching my angle, my 70-degree angle. So I'm going to write in adjacent. Okay. So for this one, we are using opposite and adjacent. 15 is the opposite and x is the adjacent. All right. Now, as we go through this, we're going to need to use our table again. And opposite and adjacent is in this third column right here. Okay. So this is really similar to what we did for lesson 5 for my honor students. That was yesterday in class. For my regular students, that was 2 days ago. And regular students, you guys had practice very similar to this yesterday. So I think you'll be okay with this. But we're using opposite and adjacent. Okay. So what we are going to do is we're going to use opposite over adjacent and set up a fraction using these two values. Okay. So if I set this up, here's how that would look. All right. We've got 15 over x. Okay. And how you would set that up is you would say 15 over x equals, and then we need to find whatever decimal goes with 70 degrees in that, excuse me, in that last column. Okay. So if we go to 70 degrees down here, that's down here near the bottom, and we're going to go to the last column because we have opposite and adjacent, and it's 2.747. So this is how we're going to set it up to start. 2.747. Okay. Now, I said when I was going through these types of problems initially, whenever we set it up like this, that to get rid of a fraction, you need to multiply by whatever's on the bottom. Okay. So, and I'm sorry, this is the easiest way that I can do this to try to type it out. To get rid of our fraction, what we're going to need to do is multiply by x on the outside. Okay. And if we do that to the left, we're also going to have to do that to the right. Okay. So on this side, on the left, we're going to simplify this now. We have 15 divided by x times x. So to simplify that, the x's cancel out. All we have left is 15. On the right side, we have 2.747 times x. To simplify that, that's all it is. Okay? Now to get the x alone, we need to divide by this number that we have right here. So 2.747. And then we're going to have to do the same thing on this side. Divide by 2.747. All right. Now, over on the right side, everything cancels out except for the x. When we divide a number by itself, it cancels itself out. So all we're going to end up with left on this side is just a plain old x. And if we put this into our calculator, that will give us our answer. So 15 divided by 2.747. All right. And this is going to be our answer. Now it says in the instructions to round to the nearest tenth. So our answer is 5.46. Since this right here is a 6 and that is greater than 5, we are going to round up to 5.5. Okay? All right. That is one example of each type of problem. If you need any help, please reach out to me on Remind. I am happy to help you. I understand we haven't practiced this a ton in class. So if you struggle, I want to make sure that you get that help that you need. But this practice to me is super, super important. I think it's going to really help refine your skills. Okay. If you need help, please, 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 please text me on Remind or email me or message me on Google Classroom, any of those. Remind is best, but any of those is good. All right. Thank you.